Hey, dreamers, welcome back to your Dream Coach podcast. I'm your host, Shayla Wey. I'm a small business coach, growth strategist, and forever a believer that your dream life starts the moment you lead like you mean it. And this podcast, it's all about helping you build a life and a business that actually feel as good on the inside as it looks on the outside. So today, I'm talking about something foundational, investing in yourself before anybody else does. Now, this isn't just about money. It's about time, energy, belief, intention, boundaries. It's about seeing yourself as the most valuable asset in your business and life before expecting the world to recognize that value. Because here's the truth that I've really come to believe. No one bets big on someone who won't bet on themselves. So let's talk about what that looks like in practice and how it connects directly to your leadership, your fulfillment, and your long-term growth. So let's dive in. The first thing I want to really dive into is how you are the first investor in your dream. In business, we look for investors, we look for supporters, clients, teammates. But what I've learned is that if you are not invested in your own dream, no one else will be either. Your belief really sets that tone, and your energy sets the standard. So investing in yourself might mean hiring that coach, enrolling in that program, buying the book, or simply just blocking time in your calendar to dream bigger. It signals to the world and to yourself that your vision matters. And when we look at the time that it's going to take, is time really is an investment too. So often we think of investing in ourselves only in financial terms, but time is actually the more precious currency because you can't really build a meaningful business if you're always last on your own list. Maybe initially as you're building the foundation, but when we think about long-term success, is I've really found that leaders who consistently grow are the ones who carve out intentional time. So when I say intentional time, I'm not just talking about for strategy and execution, but really intentional time for learning, visioning, reflecting, restoring. That's where clarity and creativity come from. Because remember, how you spend your time shows you what you value. I'll always say to clients that your schedule is a reflection of what's important to you. So are you scheduling growth or are you just reacting to the grind? Because when we carve out time in our schedule, just the power of a pause, blank space to intentionally invest in being creative and reflecting, that is a huge investment and one that a lot of leaders forget to make a priority. As we get really tied into the hustle and the grind, and we forget that in order to grow to that next level, we really have to be the leaders and the visionaries. And that time investment is really one of the most powerful tools we really can give ourselves. And I found that over the years of coaching lots of leaders is you really can't lead leaders and lead others really beyond the level you're willing to grow. And I know sometimes when I'm coaching clients that sometimes this one can sting a little because it's real. I know going through this growth pain myself in certain parts of my business is that at the end of the day, you really are, as a leader, the ceiling to your organization. So your team, your clients, your community, they will only rise to the standard that you embody. So if you want others to believe in their potential, you really, as the leader, have to be expanding yours as well. And so this means working on your mindset, maybe your skill set, maybe habits. So when you're investing in your own personal and professional development, as a leader, it really isn't an option because as you continue to grow, so does your business. And it really has to be in alignment if growth is important to you. And your business can't get to a place where it outgrows you. So if you want to scale sustainability, then you really have to scale yourself first. And I have worked with leaders where they have had a business that's growing really fast. And that's a really positive thing, but it can be a little alarming if the leader isn't also learning tools and systems to grow and scale at the same rate as their business. So just keeping in mind that it's so key as leaders that in order to grow and scale with the business, we really have to be putting that work in as well. And when we invest, investing builds that self-trust. So when we start to invest in ourselves, whether that's $50 or it's $15,000, you start to build that muscle of self-trust. So what happens, you start to say to yourself is, I believe in my ability to follow through, to rise to the occasion, to grow into the version of me who can handle what's coming. And it's really powerful, and it's identity shifting. And honestly, in my own life, that has been a game changer. So every time I stretch to make an investment, it's not necessarily just about the transaction, it's about who I had to become to make it worth it. So every time we level up with that investment of ourselves and our thinking, it really does stretch us to grow to that next level in our business. And I also see this a lot in clients where they're worried about investing in an executive assistant or maybe in a different program or expanding their team. And every single time that a client of mine that is leading has invested in some way to grow their business financially, the business has always leveled up. It's always grown to fill those shoes because it forces you to think bigger and thinking to that next level. And so it's just key to that identity is something that you really resonate with. Now, it's important too that the ROI, that return on investment, isn't always immediate. Okay, but it is always there. Like I was mentioning, I was chatting with a client a couple weeks ago about this exact thing and this fear of, when I make an investment, I want to see that return immediately. And I get that because money is a resource. But one of the biggest mindset shifts I have had to make as a leader, and I've had to coach a lot of people through, is that not all investments pay off right away. And that's okay. Some of the best decisions that I've made didn't show their full return until months or even years later. But they were stacking skills, they were building network, shaping mindset, and really just continuing to stretch capacity. So, as a leader, as a CEO, as a business owner, if you're only looking for fast wins, you'll never make the moves to long-term freedom. We want to lead that way because growth is going to compound. And what you invest in, the way that you think, the way you continue to stretch that is going to show up because you're thinking more long-term. And that's a really important way to scale. Now, other people sometimes won't always get it, and that's not your job. When you start investing in yourself, especially early in your journey, people might question it. They might not understand why you're spending money on maybe coaching or courses or conferences. That's okay. They don't have your vision and they're not supposed to. So, what I found is that in true leaders, okay, the true leaders that I'm coaching and working with, the business leaders, they invest anyways. They don't need permission. They know that alignment often looks like isolation at first, but the payoff is ownership, clarity, expansion. And it might be a little cliche, but one of the quotes I love so much is that if you always do what everyone else is doing, you're going to continuously get what everyone else gets. So sometimes as a leader, what separates us as entrepreneurs is that we do make different decisions. We do invest our time, money, energy in different things. So that does look different, and not everyone has to understand that, and that's okay because we are creating a life and a vision that is going to be different than what other people might have in mind for themselves. And that investment, I find, really starts to create some skin in the game. There is a reason why free things don't always change lives, because transformation often requires transaction. And I don't mean just by money, but effort, that intention, that ownership. So I'm sure if you reflect on different things in your life, when you've really invested in something, you just show up differently. You're more committed, you're more resourceful, you're more all in. And I've seen this in myself. I've seen this in clients. I've seen this in every entrepreneur who's really broken through, is when there's things that are free and there's lots of great resources, that's awesome. But there's a different level of commitment when we really have to invest and we have that accountability to take things to the next level. And when we really look at people that, business owners that are starting to wait to invest until they feel ready or worthy or qualified, is it's really not about deserving, it's about deciding. And this is a really big one, is when we think about getting our business to the next level and waiting to invest, is I've learned this from just working with thousands of different types of people, is we always as humans think that the future is better, that later is better, that when that time is right, because it's the future. But what I have learned is that you do not become the next version of yourself before you invest. You become them through that investment. So it's not about deserving. It's about deciding, and that decision changes everything. The moment you decide that you are ready to grow to the next level, that you're worth more, that vision is going to become a reality, there is no, sort of in, sort of out. I always say to clients that when you're 100% all in, it makes the decision making so much easier because you're all in. When we're even 99%, there's still that 1%. So it circles back to a lot of what I coach people on is what is it that you really want? Because if we know we want growth, we know we want to chase our dreams, we want that fulfillment, then we have to make that decision now, and we have to make that decision to go all in, because that will change everything when you decide. And fulfillment comes from ownership. So in my coaching program, LFG, Leadership Fulfillment Growth, is I want to talk about the fulfillment piece for a second, because fulfillment doesn't come from waiting for someone else to validate your path. It comes from choosing it, owning it, and really backing it with intention. And one of the reasons I'm so passionate about leadership, fulfillment, and growth as my core values in any of the coaching I do is because as a leader, step one, we really have to lead ourselves. But so many people stop there. And I've worked with a lot of leaders that make great money, they have a lot of success, but they're not fulfilled. And so when you really invest in yourself, you're not just building a business, you're building self-respect, you're building alignment, and you're building a life that feels yours. And that is incredibly fulfilling. And it's important to recognize as leaders that our fulfillment changes over years. What fulfills us when we're a new leader is different than maybe after we've been a leader for 10, 15, 30, 40 years. Okay. And that looks different for everybody too. So as a leader, it's also important as a leader to recognize fulfillment looks different for even our employees and our team. And it's always a good reminder. And what I want to end with is that you are worth betting on. You are worth betting on every single day of the week. You are worth pouring into, because the dreams that you carry were placed on your heart for a reason. And while no one else can guarantee your outcome, you can guarantee your effort, your commitment, your growth. Every single time you invest in yourself, you send a message to your future, I'm coming for you. And that, more than anything, is the foundation of leadership, fulfillment, and growth. So if this episode lit something up for you, I've got 2 things for you today. One is definitely join the free LFG Business Academy on School. It's where I go deeper in these topics, leadership, fulfillment, growth, and where you'll find free tools, trainings, connection with other purpose-driven owners, business owners, and leaders. And the second thing is when you're in that school community, check out the free mini leadership series inside that community. It's a simple but powerful place to really start investing your time in becoming the leader your business really needs. The link is in the show notes. I'd love to see you inside our community. And just again, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of your Dream Coach podcast. Whether you're out walking the dog, driving between meetings, or just taking a moment to breathe, I see you showing up. That alone is a form of investing in yourself, and I am so grateful to have you here. If this episode resonated, share it with someone else who's ready to go all in on themselves. And don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, or DM me on Instagram at Shayla Wey Coaching. I'd love to hear what part of this hit home for you. And as always, your dream life starts with the way you lead, the way you live, and the way you grow. I'll see you next time on your Dream Coach podcast.